Hello, this is Pastor John Harris of International Living Word Cathedral, where that word is truth. I'm so excited that you're able to join and listen in to our latest sermon and see how God is moving in our ministry. We believe in John 1 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now join us for our latest sermon.
I'm not sure whether the bulletin has the wrong name or not, but I titled my sermon Foundation of Faith. So this Tuesday is New Year's Eve. Wednesday is the start of a new year. And it's not just a new year, it's a new decade. The next chapter of our lives lies in the 2020s. And it's interesting that the decade number is 2020. The last time the number of the year repeated itself like that was 101 years ago, so over a century ago. There's going to be people who lived an entire life without living on a day that had a year like that, where it repeated itself. And God uses significant numbers throughout history. One to represent the one true God, the creator of all things, and our greatest friend and father. 7 days to form all creation. 12 is the number of the disciples. The book of Daniel has 12 chapters. Daniel 12:12 says, "Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of 1,335 days." If you look at 1 plus 3 plus 3 plus 5, that's 12. 40 is used to signify completion or fulfillment. The Israelites slaved under the Egyptian pharaohs for 400 years, 40 times 10. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness as punishment for their disobedience for 40 years. Moses was 40 years times 3 when he died at 120. Moses was 40 days on Mount Sinai receiving God's law, another 40 days on the mountain after the golden calf sin. Elijah spent 40 days on the same mountain some 300 years later. 40 days and nights of rainfall that created the great flood. Jesus fasted 40 days in the wilderness before being tempted by the devil. Jesus remained on earth for 40 days after his resurrection. At the time of his ascension, there were about 120 Christians on earth, 40 times 3. Point is, God uses numbers to show that he has everything in perfect order, and to show that even the most insignificant detail has a purpose. So 2019, it was a good year for me. I hope God blessed you as he did for me. This year I met my best friend, who would later become my girlfriend. I had the opportunity to try Shakespeare on stage and got the honor of playing my first lead role. I made strides towards advancing my musical abilities. It was a great year, but inevitably I faced some challenges. Stress associated with school had its peaks. While some bad habits were eliminated, some grew fiercer. It was a year of ups and downs, just like any other year. And there were some earth-shatteringly spiritual moments. And I'll admit there were some times that I lost sight of my Savior. And through it all, I'm standing before you now, alive, breathing, believing that he's good and that he's going to bless us this year. And because of that, I say it's a good year that we just went through. This past year, through it all, it helped me grow. I learned things about the world, things in school that would have probably made my head hurt a couple years ago. I learned about others, about how much I could care for another person, how much I was willing to do for them, how much they could mean to me. I learned about myself, about where I stand in my life, about how I can extend myself to others and develop connections I never thought were possible. And I learned more about faith. I learned how to stare down a giant, how to let the little flame inside grow, how to take the blinders off, how to walk seemingly blind and yet see everything through faith. It was a great year. Yet it's passed and led us to the doorstep of a new decade. With a new year, we're guaranteed two things: celebrations and battles. And I struggled greatly last year. No doubt I will encounter a lot of pushback this year as well. Everyone sitting in this room will. All of us have victories and losses. But I want to speak to the goal of acquiring more trophies than scars this year. This year we want to be blessed, but the only way we can ever hope to be blessed is by building our life on faith, on God. So I titled my message Foundation of Faith, because what we do now, the beginning of this year, this decade, this age, will determine where we stand at the end of all of it. When building a house, a firm foundation is crucial to the stability and lifespan of the house. When building a person, a blossoming childhood, a strong foundation, rooted in good morals, is the key to helping one become a great person in adulthood. When fighting any battle, a strong, supported force is more likely to claim victory than a crumbling, unstable force. There will be addictions, bad habits, battles that we will fight this year. In the heat of those battles, it won't really feel worth it to keep fighting. We'll want to give up. We won't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and so we won't bother to finish the race. But let me tell you this, starting this year with good habits will help us to carry those habits throughout the year. Being strong in the face of adversity in the beginning will make it easier to be strong later. I've searched my own life, and in every area that I want to improve, I've found similar steps that I can take, 3 steps that I can take to get to my goals. And so I'd like to share those steps with you. I would, in another life, have stuff up on the projector, but we're going to go just with the words today. So step 1, communication. A really large reason that why my friendship and relationship with Nicole has lasted so long and has proven to be such a strong bond is communication. I was asked by my dad the other day that what was something important in my relationship with Nicole, and I answered, being real. Something that we have discussed many times has been the open nature of our relationship. We can tell each other anything, and there's no reason to keep anything hidden. I've told my deepest secrets to Nicole, probably, and I'm pretty sure she knows everything there is to know about me. Over the summer, we stayed up talking late into the hours of the night, and we played games like Truth or Truth, or Would You Rather. We just talked and talked for hours on end, and we talked about everything from childhood memories to food to future aspirations. And so we've gotten to really truly know each other so well that we can tell when something's wrong, and more importantly, can help each other. I feel that if anybody can help me feel better, it's Nicole, because she knows me so well. This communication between us has helped us become better friends and has helped each other in our darkest moments. We have a daily routine called the Nicole Show, which during this time, a question is asked, a fact is stated. We have all these different segments that are part of the show just to kind of learn more about each other. And in this time, we learn the obscure details that we haven't learned yet, things that would be totally insignificant to anybody else. But to us, they mean the world because we get to learn about the nuances that make up each other. The only reason we can care about these minuscule details is because we love each other enough to care about those little things. And we can look at this from God's perspective. God loves us so much that he cares about the tiniest things that make us up. He wants to stay up into the late hours of the night with us, just talking, us telling him about all the things that he's done for us, telling him about our day, about where we want to go in life, and him talking to us about all the blessings he still has in store for us, revealing his goodness to us. It's all through communication. A relationship cannot form or grow without communication. A relationship is the bond between two. A bond is only achieved when they know each other. You can't have a relationship with God unless you talk to him, or open up to him, or learn more about him. He talks to us. We just have to listen. He left a book of communication for us. A book that does many things. He talks about the past. It's very similar to the way that I would text Nicole. He talks about the past. He talks about the wonders that he's done in the past, the miracles of his story beforehand. He tells us of the future, what he plans to do for us, and what he plans to do for others. And then the present. Present is where the communication comes in. That's where the bond forms. The reason that Nicole and I grew so close was because we were sharing those moments together. We could have just been writing down our past or our future, and it may be discovered by somebody later, but you're not sharing that moment with the person. And that's where the bond forms in the present. We were the only two in the entire world sharing that moment with another. And with God, we establish this present with him by praying and sharing the moments with him. In moments where we can establish that sense of oneness with God, that's where the bond is created. And the step of communication actually has 2 parts. The first is communicating with God, and the second is communicating with others about God. If you want God to bless your relationship with someone, take that relationship to him. Whether it be a spouse you're finding unity with, a friend who doesn't know the Lord, a sibling who needs deliverance, or even a bridge that needs to be rebuilt after being burned a long time ago. God can touch any situation, any relationship, and he will make it better. But he won't unless you ask him to. God is pure good, and you can't find one thing wrong with God. You can't. And so why would it be bad to bring him into a relationship? It wouldn't. It couldn't. God is pure good. He's beyond perfect. And if you're afraid to lose somebody because they might feel uncomfortable in a conversation about faith, just know that while it might seem like you're losing them, God is proud of you to take the step closer to their heart and carry God with you as you come closer to their heart. How many people do you interact with in a day? Everyone knows and interacts with about 100 people, let's say. And out of those 100 people, how many do you think would willingly, without prompting, step into a place like this, into a church? Unfortunately, the number drops quite a bit because in our places of work, our schools, there's a lot of people that we interact with that don't know the Lord. And, well, if many of them don't go to church, you may be the only outlet they have, the only outlet God has to spread that word to them. And I guarantee you, there's someone in your life whose only source of the good news is you. I read earlier in Psalm 145 that men shall speak of the might of your awesome acts, and I will declare your greatness. They shall utter the memory of your great goodness and shall sing of your righteousness. I encourage you to speak Jesus wherever you go, to talk about the light inside of you, to anyone you cross paths with, because you might be the only one that crosses paths with them. Be the one that people remember as a Christian. Be remembered as the one who wouldn't shut up about Jesus. Don't let your name be remembered unless Jesus' name is next to it. And this year, this new decade, it's an opportunity to mark the beginning of the holy flame that engulfed the world, the beginning of the age of Christ's world. On the other hand, speaking about such big things, such feats, changing the world, that's kind of daunting. That's kind of hard to do, change the world. We're just us. But has anybody ever heard the phrase or a joke, or it goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Well, we have to take each moment at a time, take nothing for granted. And so I want to transition into my second step. Second step is when down, look up. Has anyone ever heard the expression, or how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. This is how we need to look at the task God has given us. When we look at the world and say that we must change it and turn it to God, that's a great goal. Only when we take on such a big endeavor, the devil tries to point out how very big things are and how impossible they seem. There's a quote that I actually have hanging on my bed frame that says, "Don't tell God how big the storm is. Tell the storm how big your God is." And I love the quote because it helps set my mind right. And remember, it's not important how impossible things seem. It's important that God can make anything possible. Then again, even when we remind the devil of our God's great power, the devil likes to remind us how small we are, telling us that we're the problem and we cannot do something even with God's help because we're so small. But that's a lie, because we can do anything through Christ. So says Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And to do this, though, we do have to get out of God's way. We have to stop making it about us and make it about him. We are imperfect. We have been all our lives. Everyone since Adam's sin has been. And so we can't make it about us at all. We have to make it about God. For he's perfect. He can do anything. And we have to lift our troubles to God. Because this year, I promise you, you will face adversity. But in that adversity, one must only look up. Notice how the scripture says, I can do all things through Christ. We aren't really the ones making it happen, or else we wouldn't need to call on God at all. He's the one doing it. We do things that we can do, and then we call upon him for the things that we cannot. So this year, when there's a wall in front of you that's too tall to climb, ask God to help you climb it. But know that it's not you doing it, it's God. And we have to let him do the things that only he can. About 2 weeks ago, I think it was, Nicole and I had auditions for the spring play, and she wanted to play Brenda, the lead role. And I totally supported her because I could totally see her as a Brenda. She's going to make a great Brenda. From the sound of it, she had a great audition. And like any other show, we were both very nervous for the cast list to come out. And Nicole and I talked about Mr. Marshall, the director who was going to make the decision who got into the show and who didn't, in which roles. And we talked about whether he would choose us for the roles that we wanted. But there's nothing we could really do to affect Mr. Marshall's decision. We already had the audition. We couldn't do anything further. So we lifted it to God. We probably spent 2 days in constant prayer for Nicole and I to get into the show and to let God do what we could not. And in the end, after asking him to do what he only could do, he answered our prayers, and Nicole got Brenda. And it just, yeah. Another thing, in an addiction, one cannot simply just up and quit without a withdrawal. This withdrawal can make it very hard sometimes for someone to stay strong and reject the impulse to relapse. In a situation where one's body and mind cannot do a thing, when your own body is fighting against you, you have to look up to God, because you physically cannot do it on your own. And so look to God for the help that's outside the body. God is outside of our imperfectness. And so he really can do anything because he's not at all associated with our imperfectness. Last year, you may have wrestled with something inside that wasn't of God, whether it be an addiction, a lingering anger, a lingering doubt, or anything that kept you from being totally faithful. This year, we're asking God to cut that thing off, to give everybody a fresh start. Eric read Romans 6, knowing this, that our old man was crucified with him, and the body of sin might be done away with, that we should no longer be slaves of sin, for he who has died has been freed from sin. Now if we died with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him, knowing that Christ, having been raised from the dead, dies no more. Death no longer has dominion over him. For the death that he died to sin once for all, but the life that he lives to God. Death has no dominion over us either, because we are tied to him, and since he killed sin on the cross, we don't have to worry about death having any dominion over us anymore. We're no longer held by the sins of the past. God forgives, and if we repent, then he cleanses us and gives us a fresh start. It's really simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Things that are easy don't really come at much of a cost. It's sometimes really hard to own up to the things that you've done. Sometimes really hard to confess to God, I have this problem that's not drawing me any closer to you. It's hard to admit your mistakes, but it's really simple. It's just one little phrase, God, take this. I don't want it anymore. Cleanse me. Amen. So in this coming season, take your troubles to God. Let him do what only he can do, because there's going to be things in your life that only he can do. So don't try to do them on your own, because you'll fail. He'll still be there, offering his hand, but you'll fail. You have to take the hand and let him do what only he can do. Psalm 145, verse 18 and 19 say, the Lord is near to all who call upon him, to all who call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of those who fear him. He also will hear their cry and save them. So if you communicate with God, going back to the first step really fast, if you communicate with God, if you ask him to take these troubles from you, he will do it. So, third step, thanksgiving. Like I was saying before, we're not the ones doing the impossible. It's God doing them. And therefore, we must not lose sight of how very blessed we are to have his help. We need to always remember and thank him. Always give credit where credit is due. Because we're not doing it, or else we wouldn't have called on God in the first place. At the end of each day, we can stop and thank the Lord for the blessings that he has given us throughout our day. If we think that we're getting through life by our own means, then we're totally losing sight of God. We depend on him for the very breath that we draw right now, let alone get us through the struggles of life. Everything is due to him. Every victory is achieved through him. Every battle is won through God, not by us. So start this year with good habits. This is where I'm trying to go with the firm foundation of faith. I start this year with good habits because habits, good or bad, become routine and then are hard to break away from. If you're strong against those bad habits of the past in these first days of this year, you will develop good habits. And those good habits will become routine for the year. And you'll find it hard to go back to the bad habits. So be strong now, and it'll be a lot easier to be strong later. First step, communication. Start this year with a good habit of talking to God. Make yourself set aside time to talk to the Lord. Start each day with a prayer, a simple morning, God, please help me be strong today. I know there's this one area in my life that I want you to touch. Just help to touch it today, Lord. And then go throughout your day. Let every area of your life be enveloped in him. It will become easier the more you talk to him. The more you'll know about him. Like the thing with Nicole. The more that I talked to Nicole, the more that I knew about Nicole, the stronger our bond got. And therefore, it was easier to talk to her about anything. And so the greater your friendship with him will become, well, the more you know about him, the greater your friendship with him will become. Talk to others about the Lord. They need to hear it from you. Assume that you're the only one they will hear it from, because there's many people in your life, at least one, but probably many, who will never hear it from anybody else except you. So make sure they hear it loud and clear. Can you think of one person in your life that doesn't know the Lord? Just everybody think of one person in your life that doesn't know the Lord. I want you to look around this room and see all these empty chairs. I challenge each one of you, not a family, every single person. Fill one of the chairs next to you this year. Bring somebody new. Bring somebody that wouldn't step foot in here otherwise. Be the person who fills one of those chairs next to you. Amen. Second step, looking up in the darkest times. Let him do what only he can. He can do it. But remember, it's not you doing it, it's him. So give the respect he deserves and thank him for all that he's done. It's that simple. And that's step 3. So communicate with him, communicate with others about him. Lift your burdens to him and thank him for blessing you. Build a strong foundation this year, a foundation of faith. Build everything off of him, and you'll see great things happen. Battles you thought would never end will be won. Peace will be achieved. Make it about him. Put it all in him. Faith is something that I noticed about a song that I listened to by Jordan Feliz by the title of Faith. Faith is something that you follow even though you don't know that it's going to turn out good. You put your faith in God. You don't know that things are going to be okay, but you believe that he's going to hold you through them. So this year, you're going to have things that are going to seem crazy to put it in God. You're just going to have to batten down the hatches, get everything ready, and just hope that you survive. But if you give it to him and have faith, no matter whether you can see the light or you can't see the light, if you give it to him, he will carry you through it. So you have to have that blind faith. Walk in faith, a foundation of faith. You'll have a blessed year. Personally, I'm going to be reviewing this message a lot this year. I realized as I was writing this is not me talking to the congregation. This is me talking to myself about a lot of things that are in my life that I want to change. And it really was just a message that I wrote down the instructions on how to change my life. And so I encourage you, just communicate, look up, and thank him. Thank you. We're going to sing one more song.
Thanks again for spending time with us here at International Living Word Cathedral. Visit our website, internationallivingwordcathedral.blogspot.com. For more information regarding our worship services, for questions, testimonies, and comments, contact us by phone 425-424-2211 or email minjmharris@yahoo.com. International Living Word Cathedral, where thy word is truth.